The Call of Duty Black Ops 6 beta is finally here, and it's honestly so much fun. But the massive thing with Black Ops 6 is the new Omni movement mechanics. Now, they are going to take a while to get used to, not just on the beta, but when the full game comes out as well. But to take full advantage, I thought I'd share with you today the best controller settings to master them, as well as the best graphic settings and audio settings for the Black Ops 6 beta as well. So let's just hop straight in. Now, if you don't have a paddled controller, or you don't play claw, and you just have an ordinary controller, whether that is on PlayStation or Xbox, then I would recommend using Bumper Jumper Tactical. This makes it so we can jump or mantle with the left bumper, whilst being able to go prone or crouch or slide with the right stick clicked in. This means that we can do all of the different movement mechanics within the game, but without taking our fingers or thumbs off the controller. Now, if you do try this out and you feel like it's too much of a learning curve, then I would recommend just going standard tactical or something like that. For the stick sensitivity, that's kind of up to you. I've gone 5.5. A lot of pros use 6.6, but if you can handle higher, then absolutely more power to you. For these new settings to Call of Duty, I do recommend switching them off, as essentially they override a bunch of other settings which we'll want to have full control over. The one you might want to change though is swapping the bumpers for the triggers, since you can click down a bumper slightly quicker than a trigger, so some people like to shoot with the bumpers. But that is something you might want to consider. Then as we come down to dead zone inputs, really you want the minimums as low as they can go until you start getting stick drift. And by stick drift I mean when you're not actually touching your analogs, but your character might start moving a little bit, or your aim might start wandering into the corner. If that's the case, just switch these up a little bit until that stops happening. Now, on top of that, I would put your left stick max down to 75. So really with our left stick, we're only using it to sprint around. So by reducing the maximum, it just means that we can kick into a full sprint that little bit quicker. But before we get into the rest of the settings, I want to tell you about LgoFast. During the Black Ops 6 beta, you may come across high latency due to just so many players being online, or you may just want easier lobbies for a more relaxed time. Well, that's where LgoFast comes in. You can get a better connection, meaning lower latency and a better download speed, as well as better frames per second and bot lobbies. For example, with LgoFast's Easy Lobby 2.0 feature, it can intelligently recommend the best IP address to a player in real time. It also has loads of different IP addresses to choose from, covering 38 countries. Now, LgoFast is different from a normal VPN in that it doesn't change your server to match you to the location of the lobby, it simply changes your location before the match. So it makes the SBMM system think you're playing from a faraway land with lag, so ultimately lowers the KD of the lobby. Now just take a look at these games I had before I enabled it. The matchmaking is cranked to the absolute max. Then after I turned on the Easy Lobby feature, the average skill of the players in the game is noticeably different. If you do want to try LgoFast out, you can head to the description down below and follow the link, and you can even sign up for a free trial to try it out first. Or you can use my discount code SPRING30 for 30% off when you do sign up. It's completely safe, supports thousands of games, and works with PC and console. In fact, for console players, it's even easier than it was since the launch of their web app, which means no physical box is required, just like PC. Search LgoFast Easy Lobby or click the banner on the homepage to find out more. Now let's get back to the settings. Now, as we go over to aiming, we do have sensitivity multipliers for aiming down sights. I've got mine on 0.95, which basically means my sensitivity reduces that little bit when I'm actually aiming down my sights. If you are running a super high sensitivity and you're struggling to hit your shots, then put this setting down a little bit more, but I wouldn't recommend going below 0.8 because then it's actually quite hard just to track people. For the aiming advanced settings, put your ADS sensitivity transition timing on instant, and I would recommend your aim response curve type go to dynamic. This allows your aim to be a lot snappier because you get slightly quicker movement in the initial phase of moving your analog before it slows down. If you haven't played on this before, try it out and then train yourself to use it just by playing a lot. And then of course for aim assist, put this on, although you should know that on Black Ops 6 the aim assist seems a lot weaker, so just be aware of that. As we come across to movement, for your sprint assist, I recommend putting it on tactical sprint assist. This means that when you push left on your analog, you actually go into a full tactical sprint straight away. You don't need to do any extra clicks or anything like that. And then for the sprint assist delay, I would recommend actually putting this down a little bit. Again, it's just going to allow us to be as fast as possible around the map. For mantle assist, I recommend switching this off, and the same with crouch assist and automatic airborne mantle. Sometimes you might have had it where you're trying to jump shot someone, or maybe try a jump shot from a window onto a ledge or something, but then the game automatically kicks in and makes you grab something that you don't want to. Obviously that can be super annoying and can get you killed. I just like to be in full control of my character. That way everything I'm doing is actually intentional. For slide and dive behavior, this one's a little tricky this year because obviously we do have that omni movement. I still like tap to slide, which means I can just tap my prone button to go go into a slide, but I still have the option to dive if I hold it. I still think sliding is kind of going to be the main mechanic in most situations. Obviously, being able to dive in any direction is kind of fun, but there's still a little bit of delay from when you dive to being able to actually aim in. So I can't see us diving around the map in all directions, kind of like we're all doing in the beta because we're trying it out. So I would recommend tap to slide. Hybrid is also a good option if you can get used to it. For auto peek, put this off. And then for movement advanced settings, actually many of these are still on the standard. Then as we come over to combat, you can leave a lot of these on the default setting, but we do want to go down to combat advanced settings. Here I recommend putting the weapon mount exit on instant, putting the interact and reload behavior on tap to reload. If you're mainly a Warzone player, then I do recommend using tap to interact, since most of the time you are just looting up rather than reloading, and tapping the button rather than holding it is just a lot quicker. But in my experience, using tap to interact in multiplayer can actually just slow the whole process down a little bit. Sprint cancels reload, put this off, and then the rest of the settings here you can leave on default. Now let's head over to the graphics where we can make a lot of good changes. For 120Hz refresh rate, enable this. This allows us to get 120 frames per second. Now this is only available on newer generation consoles and for people that actually have a monitor or TV that can handle it. For brightness, crank this up a little bit to about 65, I recommend. Some of the maps are a little bit dark and drab, so I do recommend putting this up. Safe area, this refers to the HUD. Minimize this as much as possible. You want that mini map in the corner coming a little bit more central to the screen, just so you don't have to spend as much time scanning into the top left corner to see where the red dots are. On the quality tab, turn off world motion blur, weapon motion blur, and depth of field. So the lack of blurriness is obviously just going to help us see easier. And the same for depth of field. This is the setting that blurs your view when you aim in, kind of around your sights. For Fidelity FX cast, switch this on. If you're on a newer generation console, I recommend somewhere between 60 and 90. It really does sharpen those images quite a lot. For older generation consoles, either switch this off or go super low around 10, because it does have a little bit of a burden on your system, so it does lower your frames per second slightly. For on-demand texture streaming, I've put mine on minimal. This isn't going to matter too much, but if it reduces my chances of the game bugging a little bit, or even having a slightly worse connection, I'm going to take it. For view, you can switch off the motion reduction, as essentially we've just removed all that already. For field of view, I've gone 110. I do recommend anywhere over 100 really. Anything below that, you're just going to miss out on seeing stuff. But as always with field of view, do take into account that the higher you have it, the lower your frames per second is going to be. For ADS field of view, put this on affected. This means that when we aim in, we're still at the field of view that we've just set here, rather than defaulting back to 80. For weapon field of view, put this on wide. This makes our weapon just look marginally smaller, again allowing us to see more of the environment. And then for camera movements, we want it on least, which is 50%, and then inverted flashbang is just very much up to you. Now we're actually not finished for the graphics just yet, as we can head over to interface. Put your minimap shape on square, and then these other settings aren't too important, but if we go across to readability and go down to color customization, we can make the game pop a lot more, and we can do that with the color filter 2 and turning the intensity all the way up to 100. This is a great shortcut even if you're on PC to making the game just look a lot better. Okay, now finally we're over to audio, and for the master volume I've gone for 70. I find at 100 some sounds can sound a little distorted, but obviously these days most of us can just control the master volume on our headsets, so not too important. Then for the breakdown, I've gone gameplay music on 0, dialogue volume on 30 because sometimes characters actually just do shout important things out, effects volume on 100 because that is things like footsteps, which we do want to hear, and then cinematic music volume on 6. Again, you can turn this all the way off, and then for the actual preset audio mix, I've gone for headphone bass boost. It gives us a nice tight dynamic range, so the traditional lower volumes are kind of increased in volume to try and match the volumes of the rest of the audio tracks, and with the bass boost it does enhance the lower end frequencies, and that can be things like footsteps in certain situations. Now this is by no means perfect because there are a few instances already on the Black Ops 6 beta where I just haven't heard people in certain situations, but we're kind of used to that now with COD. Generally though, this is our best bet to actually hearing people. For mono audio, switch this off. This ensures that we have stereo audio enabled, giving us directional sound coming in the left and right ear. Reduce tinnitus sound, switch this on. So they're all the best settings for the Black Ops 6 beta right now. Hopefully they do help you out and get to grips with the new movement. And since we're finished up here, why don't you join me over in this video to see how to rank up as fast as possible on the Black Ops 6 beta, or even check out my other settings videos for Warzone.